So I think some of the policies that we want to talk about, Ed, because the first one that we've got listed that we would suggest implementing and starting to live is that no blame culture, or the no blame policy. So can you extend on the sort of definition of that and how that comes to life in the firm based on what you were just talking about there?
Yeah, absolutely. If you create a blame culture, if you're looking for a person to blame, then you create what's called a scarcity mentality within the organization. Everybody will just go hide. They won't come out and tell you what the problem is because they're afraid of getting blamed for it. And if you don't know there's a problem because everyone around you is hiding the problem, then you're not going to be able to fix it. And in Australia, we have this thing about, like when I coach firms, we prepare a survey with clients. And a lot of firms say, oh, we don't want to ask the clients feedback because they might tell us something we don't want to hear. Whereas in Japan, they want complaints. The reason why they want complaints is because they have this attitude of kaizen, of continuous improvement. And you can't improve something unless someone complains about it. But I think the reason why it's manifested in this way is because we do have this blame culture. We also have this thing called a tall poppy syndrome. And the blame culture that's prevalent in organizations create this scarcity mentality, whereas it should be an abundant mentality where everybody is fine with making mistakes because it's a learning experience, as long as we all focus on the solution. I've never ever blamed anybody for making any mistakes, and sometimes they're so upset themselves. I do the opposite. I just encourage them out. It's just a learning experience. Don't worry about it. And if you create that kind of abundant mentality, then everybody will be open and free with their problems and their concerns and their things that have gone wrong, and everybody works together to find a solution. So it's a much, much better environment to create. And that's created by the leaders of the organization.
Mm-hmm.
There's a saying that the fish sinks from the head down. Whatever is down in the organization is created at the top. And when I say leaders, I'm talking about everybody. I'm talking about not just, I'm talking about the client managers, the assistant client managers, the senior production managers, all throughout the organization should not have a blame culture. Just focus on fixing the problem, and you'll see the whole culture change.
And Jamie, feel free to add your contribution here, but I mean, I see this very much as a cultural thing. It becomes part of the DNA of the firm. It's not specifically a step-by-step policy that you can follow, if you like. So, guys, how do you actually practically implement this into and ingrain it into the culture of the firm? Are there any suggested simple steps? Because it's one that can be quite confrontational, with having to say to someone, no, we don't say that. How do you approach this one?
If I could just make a quick comment and then Ed, but one of the things I found, particularly with making changes in your firm to improve, and, often when you make changes, things will go wrong, because that's just the nature of change. But what some people do, what some leaders do, it's really easy to focus on the 5% or the 1% of a mistake that may have gone wrong on a new system. And people tend to, and I used to do this, to say, well, let's go and change that whole system. Or, someone's made that mistake, so let's go and change, the rest of the 95%. What I found was that's really poor leadership, because I would forget the helicopter view. I would forget the step back and sort of look at the facts and say, it's only 1% of clients or 5% of clients. And so, because what sort of tends to happen is if you go and make that change to the whole system, you can be inadvertently blaming someone for making that mistake. So just be aware that if mistakes happen when you do make changes, that I guess it comes down to what they call the 80-20 rule. It's very easy to focus on the 20% or the 5% and then change the 80% and throw the baby out with the bathwater, as they say. And I used to do that.
Absolutely. Ed, anything to add to that?
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, we had an incident the other day here where a client complained, and instantly our marketing manager started to prepare a policy to change the whole thing. And my first response to him was, "How many complained?" And he said, "One." And
Mm,
9,000 clients. And I said, "We had one client complain." And I think the clients that's perhaps not educated or misunderstood, let's just spend time to educate him and explain to him how it works rather than change the whole thing, whereas the other thousands of clients are happy with what we're doing. But it's not easy. I mean, I'd be silly to sit here saying to you, "Oh, it's really easy." It's not easy. And for us, we've all got different personalities, and some of us are more volatile than others and react too quickly and so forth. But, but it's got to start from yourself, because you've got to lead by example. And the worst thing is you say something and do the opposite. That is the absolute worst. As a leader, everybody's watching you. And if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. But it's not easy. And I'm constantly, I work, as a saying, I work harder on myself than on the other person,
mhm,
because for me to show good examples, and I'm a person, I've got feelings, and I don't think I'm a natural leader. So I work harder on myself, and I constantly work on myself with these things. And if you're an emotional, reactive kind of person, there's different techniques that helps you. You could count to 10 before you say anything. You could say, "I'll come back to you on that." Just these buffer zones. So there's often the language that you use hurts quite a lot. And for example, if someone's made a mistake and you say, "You've made a mistake," the word "you" is cutting. It's personal.
mhm,
So think about the words you say. You'd say things like, "Oh, it's a better way to do this." So I constantly work on those little things, because your communication is so important. That's the thing that we have over everybody else is our ability to communicate, and you can do it poorly or you can do it, extremely well. And as leaders, we need to work on that. And I think there's a section further on about communication.
mhm.
But those little things that you've got to work on.
The "I'm busy" culture, where does that fall into it? I feel like it falls under the umbrella of the blame culture, because I'm experiencing quite often at the moment in the advice business I'm doing some consulting with, and it's "I'm so busy, I'm so busy, I'm so busy," and then that leads to blame because I'm so busy. Do you experience that, and how do you deal with that directly?
Yeah, I had the exact same thing. I had a new marketing manager start with us, and he keeps saying that he's too busy. And I said, "If you're not too busy, everybody's got the same amount of time."
Mm,
And the reason why some people are so much more productive and get through things and get so much done than others is because they prioritize. They know what's important and what's not. And I used an example, and I said, if I said to you, "There's $1 million on the table here, and all you've got to do is to do the thing that I've asked you to do, which you said you were too busy to do," then all of a sudden your priorities change. And then you put that right at the top of the priority list. So don't tell me you're too busy. Tell me how to prioritize what you're doing.
mhm,
So it's a question of priorities. We often use excuses because that's an easy one. "I'm just too busy." Like, we're all busy. We've all got the same amount of time. Then why does some people achieve so much more than others? Is because they know what's important. And we talked about the quadrants in the past. They know work in quadrant B and not quadrant A. And I have firms say to me, "We started out together, we're about the same size, and now you're so much bigger than I am, and I'm still working in the business, and you've stopped working when you're 38 in the business. What did we do differently? We had the same amount of time. It was just that I worked in quadrant B and they worked in quadrant A." And it's just a matter of prioritizing and spending your time in the right area. So as leaders, we need to spend time on training others,
mhm.
inspiring others, educating them, and you get a lot more leverage out of that, and you achieve a lot more than doing it yourself.
Perfect.
Mm.
It's a great answer. Thank you. Did you want to add something there, Jamie?
I was going to just add one other comment, was that with developing leaders, and for everyone listening, one tool that might be helpful, and I did do this for about a year, about 4 years ago, was keep a weekly, or sometimes I did it monthly, just a journal, a leadership journal, and I would just jot down over the last month, what went well, what didn't go so well, and why did it go well or why didn't it go well? Could have I changed my approach? Because I think Ed has a big quota of this is, I think, self-awareness of how you come across, how you have an impact on others is a really big ingredient to a successful leader. So I just wanted to add that level of self-awareness. I found that with the leadership journal, just reflecting on the last week, reflecting on the last month, did help me become a better leader in the long run.
Absolutely. I think that's so valuable, such a valuable exercise, because it gives you an opportunity to stop and reflect on that. And then reflect on the journey that you have gone on, because we often don't take the time to do that. So that's a great exercise.